this is Kermit the Frog.
Fascinating.
I'm Captain Kirk.
Magic is always there.
Aye, sir.
As long as we keep looking for it.
Engage.
What does God need with a starship?
Thank you, love you. Mwah.
I protest. I am not a merry man.
Places, please. And here we go.
Down at Fraggle Rock.
Welcome, Doozers, Gourds, Kelpians, and things to episode 129 of the MuppeTrek Podcast. I'm Steve.
And I'm Jarman, and we're on a journey across the stars to compare and contrast the creative worlds of Jim Henson and Gene Roddenberry.
What started as reviews of The Muppet Show and Star Trek the Original Series has expanded into outer space.
And this week we have Fraggle Rock episode, I Want to Be You, and Next Generation episode, The Child. But before we get into that, Steve, I want to rock. That was the Love Boat.
Really? Is that what it was?
I want to rock the Love Boat, if you know what I mean.
There we go. Well, there are all kinds of gems, jewels, and geodes in this world, many of which can be found in Fraggle Rock. And this week's rock is amethyst. It's actually a type of quartz that is characterized by different purple hues, with very, very dark purple and very, very light purple being the rarest. Its name comes from ancient Greek amethystos, a meaning not, and thistos meaning drunk, because it was believed that if you carried it or wore pieces of jewelry with it, that it would stop you from getting drunk.
Weird.
Then in the feudal ages, soldiers wore jewels and pendants and jewelry made of amethyst because they believed that it had like healing properties and would protect them in battle. And now it's just the birthstone of February.
My birthstone.
I remember you had that giant amethyst in your class ring.
Oh, I know. I have that somewhere.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why it takes me so long to get drunk, because my birthstone's an amethyst.
Always wear amethyst. Well, yeah, that's amethyst, and that rocks.
That's rocks.
God damn it.
Faulty soundboard. It wasn't me. It's just the soundboard. Yeah.
Well, this week, let's start with What's Up, Doc? Doc recounts past Halloween costumes with Sprocket chases something into the wall as they try to figure out what to go as that year jointly. Sprocket tries on various costumes as Doc tinkers, and then Doc and Sprocket finally decide to go as each other, and it's just adorable.
Mm-hmm.
But what's going down in Fraggle Rock? Red desperately tries to gain Gobo's attention, mostly through annoyance, but everyone is distracted by Mokie and her new poem. Red laments that all the attention that Mokie is getting and sings a really sad song called Dreaming of Someone, where she just envies Mokie and who she is. Red goes and seeks advice from the trash heap, but Marjorie just simply recites a poem. It doesn't help anyone. Meanwhile, Mokie is painting two doozers, one with a brush and one with her tail. Red shows up with her hair down, wearing a sweater, and she's trying to be just like Mokie. She tries to complete the paintings, but knocks both of them down, destroying them. Boober shows up and questions Red's weird behavior, and he thinks she must have a disease. Boober concludes that she is suffering from bacterial sufferosis, and he thinks he has it too. And he talks that idiot Wembley into thinking he has it too. Just then, Gobo and Wembley come in. Gobo reads Uncle Traveling Matt's postcard, which we will talk about later. Red spends some time with Mokie just to see what it's like, and they see a beetle sitting on a stone, and they sing a whole song about it. The song becomes incredibly complex and speeds to a fever pitch. The others discuss a cure for Red. Red goes to gather radishes so she can be just like Mokie, while Gobo and Mokie sneak over and they hear the trash heap talking about Red and how she really likes Gobo, and they figure out what's going on. Gobo and Mokie are caught in a Gorg's trap. Red pretends to be a talking bush and yells at Junior Gorg, distracting him while the others escape. Gobo and Mokie are thankful and tell Red that they're thankful that she is her, and she's a pretty great bush too. Red is back to her normal self. Boober and Wembley are miraculously cured, and Gobo finally agrees to go on the slide with Red, tucking his leg up behind his head and making a splash. So, German, what did you think of this week's episode of Fraggle Rock?
I thought there were a lot of cute moments in this one. I do like Boober's obsession with like plagues and pestilence since the beginning.
Yeah.
He even asks about like Mokie's poem. He's like, is it an elegy to plague and pestilence? And I was like, oh my God, if I was a kid and watching this, I would not know what that is. But, and then basically,
they were counting on that.
Yeah. He looks into a book, which is basically like the Fraggle WebMD, where it's like tells you the worst thing possible you could possibly have. And I like that there's an Easter egg it pointed out where he says bacterial sulfurosis gives you funny hair and a weird voice, which are two attributes that can describe most Fraggles.
Yeah.
I like that. And Doc and Sprocket's costumes were adorable of each other. That was so funny, and the different costumes they're trying on. I will say it wasn't like as outstanding as the past few episodes we've watched, but it was still super cute and fun, and the great message that you should be yourself, not someone else. So compare yourself to others. And I thought it was gonna be all slow songs, but then the Red and Mokie song, like you said, kept speeding up as it went along and became like a patter song almost. And it was a lot of fun. And I did laugh out loud when the Junior Gorg was like talking to the Bush, Mr. Bush, tell me what to do next, Mr. Bush. But anyways, I don't know. What'd you think of it?
I agree. The energy was a little bit lower, I think, than some of the other episodes that we've watched. It's weird. It's just like Picard and Crusher in this first season. It feels weird that they're trying to sell like kind of a romance angle between Fraggles.
Oh, like Red and Gobo?
Yeah, this is the second time where we've gotten, she like gave him a kiss on the cheek in the earlier episode. He got all demure.
Forgot about that.
And then her getting jealous of Mokie. It feels that way. Maybe it just feels weird that they're doing that.
It's hinted at.
Who knows? But it's the same with Crusher and Picard. It's like, come on, guys.
This is getting weird.
Yeah. But otherwise, love the Beatles song.
Not from the Beatles, but a song about a Beatle.
Yeah. I loved the Sprocket and Doc subplot, and then I love their end costumes. The fact that they were dressed as each other was just phenomenal.
Very complicated Sprocket outfit.
Very complicated. Someone worked hard on that thing. But overall, I would say like one of the lower episodes we've watched, but
nothing bad.
Not that low, just lower energy.
Yeah, it was kind of a middling episode, which is just fine. And I actually, something cool I read on the wiki for this, I was looking through like stuff about the episode, and I didn't know that they do a different entire Doc and Sprocket for the French version. So the French version has a different actor who plays Doc, and his dog is named Croquet because he's a chef instead of a tinkerer. And I was like, fascinating.
There's a few different international versions.
I wonder.
There's one for, I think, in the Netherlands where he's a lighthouse keeper.
Oh, wow. That's so cool. I'm guessing the Fraggle scenes stay as they are, just redubbed, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Those are redubbed, but then all the intercuts
That's
are
so cool.
local. And they took a similar approach for like Sesame Street when that was syndicated into foreign markets. Like they already had this.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Figured out.
The French Doc has like a huge acting career too. He's did a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But anyways,
we got to figure this was a joint venture of HBO and the Canadian Broadcasting CBN or something like that. Yeah. So French was one of its early adoption languages.
Because wasn't the show on Nickelodeon at the time? I thought it was. No,
not that I was aware of.
What did I watch it on? What's it on?
It got syndicated to hell.
Okay. Maybe
by the time we would have had it, it would have been in syndication.
Okay, that's what guys. We
didn't watch it live.
Late 80s. You're right. So we would have watched it later.
Yeah.
I just assumed it was coming on live at the time.
So this week, what the hell are those silly creatures up to? Well, Uncle Traveling Matt finds himself on a farm and he encounters a pig. He dons a pig disguise to blend in, and the farmer mistakes him for a pig, pushing him towards the trough. Pigs originated in Indonesia, and then they branched from there into Asia and Europe.
Really?
The domestic pig that we know now comes from the European branch. Like what we think of as farm pigs are European pigs. And the Spanish actually brought them over to the Americas in the 15 to 1600s, and they brought them to South America. And that is where the domesticated pigs that got out, this I never put together, are the ones that are feral pigs then.
Oh, so they just kind of did that.
They're not wild. Wild pigs are a different thing than feral pigs. And I had never thought about that before.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Feral pigs are an ongoing problem in the Midwestern U.S. They run rampant out there to the point where various government bodies offer like cash incentives in some places
to kill them,
to have seasons and kill them.
Jeez.
So yeah, Uncle Traveling Matt went to a farm, and that's pigs.
That's pigs for you, man.
What did you think was the best Muppeteering moment this week in a slightly like lower energy sort of episode?
So I was actually, speaking of pigs, very impressed and scared for the puppeteer doing Uncle Traveling Matt with that big old boar that they had. It wasn't just a regular sized pig. That was a big old pig.
Boar.
Because pigs and boars are vicious. They can be if they feel threatened. And so the fact that he was that close to an actual pig, I knew they were cutting away for some of the stuff, but then there's couple shots where he's in the shot with the pig. I'm like, I wouldn't want to be in there alone with that pig, that giant ass pig. So I was just impressed with the Muppeteering in that instance, because that was impressive.
I'm going to give it to, I know that you've mentioned this before. You love the effect in the Gorg's garden where there's like little puppets and big Gorg. And for some reason this week, it just looked especially good. Yeah. And
the effect for whatever reason, Fraggles talking looked really good.
Yeah. And for whatever reason, that really hit this week for me. And because in past episodes, there's times where there's just, it's a little thing.
Yeah.
It
moves wrong.
It feels like a little thing. Right. But this is one of the few times where I feel like they executed it perfectly. Almost.
That was my second runner up. I was almost going with that one.
So Jarman, what happened on this week's episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation?
So I won't do this every time, but last time I experimented with ChatGPT to do a funny rendition of the summary, but actually did a better job this time because I gave it better instructions. So here's the funny version of what happened on the show.
Okay.
So, the joy of the life aboard the Enterprise. So, Dr. Catherine Pulaski, the new chief medical officer, is welcomed on board to help carry some ridiculously dangerous virus samples because apparently Starfleet thought the Enterprise didn't have enough potential for disaster. Just as they're about to hit the gas and head to Octet 9, a random ball of energy decides it's party time and zooms straight into Counselor Deanna Troi's womb because why not? Assault. That's my editorial. Captain Picard, ever the stickler for protocol, is wondering why Dr. Pulaski hasn't checked in with him yet. Spoiler alert, she's busy hanging out in the 10 Forward Lounge, where all serious medical professionals apparently go to chat about impromptu pregnancies. That's pretty funny. Troi, understandably confused, is now hosting an accelerated fetus that's going to be fully developed in 36 hours. And just to keep things spicy, she has no idea who the father is, though she vaguely remembers a presence crashing her personal space. The senior staff, obviously freaked out, start debating whether to pull the plug in this bizarre baby, but Troy's like, nah, I got this. As if that wasn't enough, the Enterprise finally grabs those virus samples and heads for the Starfleet medical station, where we hope someone knows what they're doing. Troi, now the proud mother of a perfectly normal-looking boy named Ian, watches as he grows from a newborn to a 4-year-old overnight. When asked to explain himself, Ian is all mysterious and says, "Not yet," which is code for, I'm about to make this episode even weirder. Sure enough, the plague samples start misbehaving, growing at an alarming rate thanks to some mysterious radiation. Meanwhile, Ian, now resembling an 8-year-old, casually admits to Troi that, oh yeah, he's the cause of all this chaos and needs to peace out. Troi realizes her alien baby is dying, and in one of the weirdest goodbyes ever, Ian dies in her arms, morphs back into his energy form, and explains that this whole thing was just him trying to figure out what it's like to be human, even though she's a betazoid. Well, she's half betazoid.
In her head, though.
In her head, though.
We don't get to hear any of this. We hear all this shit secondhand.
That's right. Thanks to the trauma, Ian. And in a side plot that's only less confusing, Wesley Crusher, still mourning his mother's departure, decides that instead of leaving the ship to join her, he'd rather stay on the Enterprise because dealing with all this madness beats hanging out with Mom any day. I think that's a fantastic recap of the episode. But then they get the samples finally to the planet, and they don't even know for sure that they're going to be able to cure this virus that they're originally trying to do, but they're hopeful, and that's kind of the end of the episode. So, Steve, what do you think of this one?
All right, some likes. The good A plot, B plot interplay.
Yeah.
That really worked to drive the tension. I like Dr. Pulaski, good character intro, and more than I expected to like her.
Yeah.
And I like that she caught Picard kind of flat-footed a few times. She has that cute scene with Data.
Yeah, exactly. It's Data.
And so that they're not willing to just say she's integrating seamlessly, like she is having these moments with people. Some issues I had, I looked at the guy who directed this. He's directed so much television. It's just incredible. But there are some weird cinematography choices in this episode. There are too many tight reaction shots. There are multiple scenes where something happens and they literally do a cut reaction shot. So we don't even get to see the space over their head. The space is here and they literally cut to 4 or 5 different people.
Making it
and they did that multiple times where I was like, what are we reacting to right now?
Is this important?
Was it important that I see everyone's face? If it was that important, why not use a wide shot where we can see everyone's face? If you ever watch the episode, check it out. It is everywhere.
Yeah, I didn't really notice.
Too tight cut shots. So I had issues with that, and it was just kind of annoying to watch the whole time. This episode did not need an A, B, and C plot. It just did not.
That's true.
I think the Wesley Crusher plot should have had some sort of elevated thing as a character development, and somehow they would find a way to like condense the other two.
I guess the A and B were kind of one, because the baby kind of had to do with the virus, at least influenced the virus reacting. But they did feel completely separate most of the episode. Like it was her pregnancy thing and the virus thing. They didn't feel very together, but then they ended up being related at the end. But
right.
Yeah.
And so that was the A plot, B plot, as far as I'm concerned. And then we had this like C,
the
Wesley
thing.
plot over here. I just felt like that deserved more attention and we could have lost the virus thing. And all they had to say is the ball of energy is causing surges in the ship.
Oh, I agree. That would be better. Yeah.
That eventually will destroy it. And they've got to figure out where the surges are coming from.
Yeah.
And as they're investigating, Deanna's kids growing up in front of their eyes.
Instead, it became too convoluted with the virus and everything. And they didn't really pan out to anything.
The containment things are in this bigger containment thing. We have to jettison the big thing, but we can't. I was like, what?
Now it's growing and what?
I was like, I cannot tell you how many space things I've seen where they flip like 2 switches and a big door opens and something sucks out into space. Why the fuck is that not possible in this situation?
You missed that line of dialogue again, because the guy says, why don't we just jettison it out into space? And he's like, because then it would corrupt this whatever. And he said it could fall into a spaceship.
But even that was stupid though. He was like, it could crash. No, that was dumb, because they're acting like they couldn't do something about it after the fact. That's why it's stupid.
Yeah, it's like, why have you always been able to do that in the past? Why can't you do that now?
Oh, why don't you put a little tracker on this thing and you release
throw it into a sun or something, into a star.
And then you grab it with your tractor beam that we know you got, and you drag that shit along like you drag ships and stuff. So no, I do not stand corrected. I stand by my position. It's really fucking stupid that
totally
wasn't a solution.
Justified. I would say at least they addressed it with a line, but they addressed it poorly. So I agree with that. I agree with that.
So do we got any fun factoids here?
Well, something else I wrote down my part here.
Oh yeah.
So they do say that Pulaski does have kind of McCoy vibes, and you'll get more of that as she goes forward in the season.
See that. I can definitely see that.
Grumpy and like she won't take crap from anybody, and she's kind of be a good foil to the captain. Like you said, she won't take his crap all the time. She's like, I know what's going on here. And also this is very kind of icky feeling episode because basically Troi is raped by a space entity, and they kind of gloss over that and don't really address the fact that this was assault, and just like,
no, they do, but they do it in the most fucked up way they can.
Which way?
Which is when they're examining her, and they're like, she had it, but she didn't feel anything, and there was no pain, and it was almost like it never happened. And I was like, so you are addressing the fact that she was space raped, but you're basically literally telling us to pretend it didn't happen.
Yeah, and then
as an audience,
okay.
You're trying to make it okay for us.
Yeah. It just felt really weird. And also, I did like on the Wesley front, that scene introducing Guinan in season 2, which is fantastic. She's one of my favorite characters.
That was a great intro.
And that scene between the two of them was great. She's like, she keeps asking what he wants. He's like, I don't want anything. He's like, are you sure? We'll just talk. Let's sit down. She becomes like the best counselor on the ship, basically.
Yeah, I love that intro. And I love that by the end, I'm not even still sure I like her.
Yeah.
Like she was kind of a jerk in some instances and less helpful. And yes, she ended up being helpful, but not like
She becomes more interesting as it goes along, more mysterious. And also we get Riker's beard this episode.
I know she's got backstory stuff and origin stuff from us watching the movies and First Contact. And
she even comes back in Picard, the series, which is great. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Riker's beard also,
years.
by the way, Riker's beard in this episode.
This feels so much better.
Yes.
That and he even got his signature like leg over the chair in. Like I feel like he got all his signature stuff in place this episode.
I'm so excited. I'm going to Dragon Con next week and they're having an event one of the nights and it's like who plays the best Riker. Basically a Riker competition. People will dress up as Riker, will do like things like the Riker maneuver, putting your hand and like how do you charm a woman? Like there's all these like competitions they're going to do at this event. So I really want to go to it because it sounds ridiculous. But Trek facts for this episode. All right. So Jonathan Frakes returned to rehearsals at the start of the second season, sporting his beard with the intention of shaving it off before shooting began. But the producers liked it so much, they asked him to keep it and it remained for the rest of the show's run. This was Marina Sirtis, the woman who plays Troi, her least favorite episode she ever produced, and I can see why.
Yeah.
The episode marks the first appearance of 10 Forward. A reorganization of the sets after the first season created space for a new set, and the producers decided to introduce a space where the crew could be seen interacting when they were off duty, which is a great decision. Another person who kind of came back in this episode, you saw very briefly, he played an unnamed crewman who just has one line, which is Cole Meany, who would later become Miles O'Brien, the transporter chief, and then move on to Deep Space Nine after that. And Marina Sirtis's fake pregnancy stomach that she had briefly was mainly filled with birdseed, apparently. So it was a birdseed pregnancy belly. And Diana Muldaur, who plays Pulaski, you might recognize her if you look closely because she was on 2 different episodes of the original series. She played a random scientist who came on board, and she played, I believe, a Vulcan in another episode. So she was a good looking woman too back in the 60s when she was on those episodes. The script for this episode was one of 3 originally written for Star Trek Phase 2, which was going to be the spin-off series originally set to air in 1978, but eventually they scrapped that just to make the movie. But in the original script, a being of light impregnates Lieutenant Aaliyah, who actually was in the motion picture eventually, the Delton woman with the bald head. And the Lieutenant Aaliyah character from this movie went on to appear in that motion picture, and she's the one who's like, gives off sex pheromones and stuff like that. The Phase 2 is going to be a wild series. But that's our factoids. But what are our Trek connections, Steve? As I hit something.
Oh, baby. All right. Seymour Castle, who played Lieutenant Commander Hester Delt, who was like the guy in charge of the virus.
Yeah.
He played a character called Johnny Boy in an episode of Flight of the Conchords, which features Brett McKenzie, who won the Academy Award in 2012 for Best Original Song, Man or Muppet.
Oh, Muppet or Man.
Yeah.
I didn't know they meant that.
And then Diana Muldaur, who played Dr. Pulaski, of course, did 5 episodes in Batman the Animated Series as a character called Dr. Leslie Tompkins. In that, the Joker's played by Mark Hamill, who voiced Skek Tech in Dark Crystal Age of Resistance. And Paul Williams, who played the Penguin through there, was also in an episode of Star Trek later on. And he guested on The Muppet Show and wrote Rainbow Connection.
Hell yeah. What a connection.
Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. Well, makes sense. These episodes are so much the same.
That's true. Same thing. We watched 2 episodes
both
in a row.
feature the outbreak of a disease, the hyperviruses, and the bacterial sufferosis.
That's true. Both found ways to make that disease situation better from an unexpected source. The Fraggles found out that Red didn't have a virus after all, so their symptoms became better. That. And the orb flew away and made the virus stop growing when the Enterprise crew had no idea what was doing it.
Both feature people seeking unlikely advice. Red going to the trash heap and Wesley Crusher going to Guinan.
Both have someone wanting to be like someone else. Red wants to be like Mokie, of course, on Fraggle Rock. Yeah. And the weird space orb thing wants to become a human.
Wants to be like a boy.
I want to be a boy.
Both feature characters making difficult decisions. Wesley deciding to stay on the ship, and Sprocket and Doc deciding what costumes to wear.
Difficult decisions. It's true. Oh, what's that?
Transporter malfunction.
Jesus Christ.
Transporter malfunction.
Jesus Christ. Now's the time in our episode where we take one character from one episode and switch them around. What you got for us,
That's
Steve?
right. Trek to Rock this week. I'm going to bring over Deanna Troi to replace Mokie, with Red trying to imitate Deanna, pretending to feel others' feelings as Deanna Troi just kind of walks around talking like this, which isn't that far off.
I'm going to make some poems. I'd have the angsty Wesley Crusher come over and take the place of Red. He would also benefit from learning that's okay to just be himself and do what makes him happy, as Guinan was trying to teach him to do. Kind of works.
Rock to Trek, bring over Boober to replace the engineer doctor guy, just constantly spouting woe about disease and them destroying themselves. And I love that line. I forgot to mention it. Where who was it? What the hell's his name?
Data?
Number 2. No.
Riker?
Yeah, that's the one. He's like, I've got a feeling, Commander, that you're going to tell me, as bad as I think it is, it's worse.
Oh, yeah.
And that sounds very much like Boober to me.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you that. It's true. Everything's terrible.
We can't jettison it. It'll be a detriment to anything it runs into.
Oh, maybe we should jettison it then. From Fraggles to Trek, I'm going to have the pig from Travel and Matt's segment to come over and take the place of Troy's baby. Because it would be just terrible and ridiculous. She just gives birth to a baby boar and it grows in this giant
I like that in our review, we really didn't talk about that plot at all. We really didn't talk about it.
What do you mean, Dean? Troy's baby?
Yeah, like you and I didn't talk about the kid at all, how he did, any impact that had on the story. Yeah.
It was terrible and it didn't have anything. Yeah, it was poorly done.
We needed more of it. We didn't need the virus thing. We needed more of that, and we needed more of Wesley. Yeah,
and so if we say where this episode, we didn't say where we place this thing, I'd say it's the worst and best episode of this season so far.
Yeah, I do have a nagging feeling, however, that this could end up pretty low.
I do too.
Overall,
not looking good.
Not looking great for this episode, but maybe this whole season is shit.
I mean,
from what I'm understood, well, when I look at like the top episodes lists, most of them are 3 to 5. The bulk majority are 3 to 5. So while I am expecting good things out of this, I know that like the real upper echelon stuff is still years
3
away.
to 5 is the meat for sure in between the bread. But that brings us to the end of episode 129 of MuppeTrek Podcast.
Join us next time for Fraggle Rock episode, The Terrible Tunnel.
A Next Generation series episode where silence has lease.
So from the lovers, the dreamers, and us,
live long and prosper, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the MuppeTrek Podcast. Be sure to follow us on social media on Facebook and Twitter.
Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform.
This podcast has been brought to you by A Play on Nerds.